Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Schoolroom with Schoolmarmy. This morning, we're going to focus on morning announcements. During this segment, what I'm going to be doing is going over some of the recent news topics that have to do specifically with education in America. And I'm not really going to go into a lot of depth about these articles. I am going to post the links down below so that you can look them up for yourself and read about what the government is doing as far as education policy in America, because this affects all of us, whether you're a homeschooler, whether you private school your kids, whether your kids go to a charter school or a public school. All of these things are going to affect us in the long run. So let's get started. So in December of 2020, this was late December 27th in 2020, you may be aware of this, that in Nevada, a high school student is suing over leftist indoctrination. Now, this was published by the Epoch Times, and I will post a link to this down below so you can see this. And basically, a little bit about the article, what it says is that in a high school senior of mixed race is suing a taxpayer-funded charter school in Nevada over the coercive ideological indoctrination that is central to its critical race theory-based curriculum, which forces students to associate aspects of their identity with oppression. And the article goes on to talk about how the teacher has required this student to reveal information about himself that he feels is private, and he's actually being graded upon that information, his private opinions, his private belief systems, his cultural traditions at home. He's having to reveal all of these things in the class, which, that could result in all kinds of bad things happening, bullying, and I just don't even know. I mean, what all kinds of things could be the fallout from that. So he has a lawyer, and he's suing over this, and you really need to be aware of what's going on. Not only about that, but it leads me to another article. This is from the Patriot Post. The date on this one is January 8th, 2021. And again, I'm going to post a link down below so you can see it. It's by Brian Mark Weber. Oh, excuse me, the other article was by Matthew Vadum. Not sure about how to pronounce that. Sorry about that. Okay, so this article is called Buckle Up for a Critical Race Curriculum. Now, it's important to know what's in the textbooks that your kids are reading. It's important to know what kind of literature they're reading, whether it's at home or at school or wherever. That's our job as parents, is to be aware of what our kids are reading and to be interested in what they're learning. So this article talks about how Biden is appointing Miguel Cardona for Education Secretary. And Cardona's plans for a more extreme agenda for educational curricula. The article says, if Cardona's history is any indication, our kids will likely be learning a lot about critical race theory in the Biden years. So, the article goes on to say this may not seem like a big problem on the surface, but, if you are conservative, conservatives should be allowed to teach their children conservative values and ideology. And the big problem, as the article says, is that the leftist political ideology has increasingly seeped into our schools in recent decades, unquote. So again, read the article for yourself. Just be aware of what's going on, okay? Just be aware of what's going on. It's really important to know that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. There is another article that I think would be a really good read, and I'm going to post this. This is from the Centennial Institute. It's an article called America, Critical Theory and Social Crisis. This is by Douglas Grutwis. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And this was written September of 2020. So I'll post links to all of those articles down below, and you can take a look. Now, the next thing I want to talk about in the news, and this has been around for a long time. And if you're unaware of this, then you must be living in a cave, with no internet and no television, because this has been going on for a long time. But the Daily Signal on December 22nd published an article by Douglas Blair called "Cartoons Are the Left's New Weapon to Target Your Kids." You know, I grew up watching cartoons on Saturday morning, Scooby-Doo, one of my favorites. What was the one, the superheroes one that had all the superheroes in it? I can't remember. I've slept since then, y'all. But anyway, I grew up on Saturday morning cartoons, and they were fun, and they were seemingly inoffensive. I don't know. Moving on. So this article talks about how the show, it says, quote, "The shows kids consumed in the past were politically agnostic, more aimed at entertaining than moralizing." And then he talks about a particular show on the Cartoon Network. So you need to read this article. I'm not going to talk any more about it, but you really need to read this. This is called "Cartoons Are the Left's New Weapon to Target Your Kids." So I'll post that in the link below. Now I want to talk about something that's really interesting, and I need to find my little book here. Let's talk about this. So this article says something really important, okay? This is the Netflix effect, corrosive storytelling and the human person. This was written on December 29th, 2020 by Josh Herring, and this is from the Public Discourse is the source for this information, and it's labeling the poop in the brownies. So if you've watched my first episode, you already know that, there's poop in the brownies, and we've got to identify it, and we've got to figure out what it is. So he's giving this a name. He talks about Netflix original programming as setting a standard for demoralizing theater and literature and plays and whatever you want to call it. I mean, they take, for example, period pieces, and then they add a whole bunch of junk that we don't really need to be seeing, and we certainly shouldn't want to be seeing. So the Netflix effect, corrosive storytelling and the human person. And one of the examples that the author in this article uses is this show, The Queen's Gambit. And I had an interesting experience in the big box bookstore that I went to when I went to buy the book. So I went to my local big box store to pick up a copy of the book, The Queen's Gambit. And this is written by Walter Tevis is his name. And it was written in the 80s sometime, I believe. 1983 is the first copyright date on the book. And so I wanted to pick it up. I wanted to read it because I did watch the Netflix series, and there's a lot of junk in it. It's not suitable for kids. I will definitely say that. But I was compelled by the story of the chess, okay, because I like the game of chess, and I think it's really interesting. So I was compelled to watch. So I go to the bookstore to buy the book, and I open up to the copyright page, and it says this: First Vintage Contemporaries Movie Tie-in Edition, December 2020. That's not the book I went in there to buy, because I don't want the Netflix version, because the Netflix effect, what this guy in the article is talking about, what Mr. Herring is talking about, is how they took this story and they rewrote it. And they added some ideology that the author never originally put into the story. Okay? I mean, we all know that drugs are harmful, right? That's not rocket science. Drugs are harmful. They hurt us. Abuse of drugs is not a good thing. Okay, I'm not going to say any more. No more spoiler alerts for you. But I did actually find the 1983 version of the book on your local internet shopping channel, and I bought it. I haven't read it yet. I'm looking forward to it. But the author of this article talks about how in the book, the character, the protagonist, has a very different attitude than she does in the series. So this is not the only story that has been affected by the Netflix effect. And if you subscribe to Netflix, which I think just about every American with a television and an internet connection does, it seems like, you need to read this article, because you need to know what they are spoon feeding you. And you need to have the wherewithal to look at the choices up there and go, maybe we shouldn't be watching this. Maybe my kids shouldn't be watching this. In fact, maybe we should just, well, that's a decision for you and your family to make on your own. So that's the news for today. That's it for morning announcements. However, I do have another article that I'm going to be talking about in my next episode. So recently in Massachusetts, the largest teachers union in the nation apparently has decided to ban some books. Book banning, book burning. Here we go, folks. Okay, welcome to the new world. Here it goes. So we're talking about the great books. We're talking about the big one, Homer, the Odyssey. So I have a lot to say about that. So I hope you'll join me for the next episode. So that's it for the morning announcements. I hope you'll join me in class on the next episode to discuss book banning, Homer, and the Odyssey. Have a great day.